You know the feeling when you're staring at a massive media file, maybe a 10-minute 8K video or a high-resolution 3D render, and the external drive you've been using just crawls to a halt. You start wondering if you should keep patching together cheap USB sticks or finally invest in something that just works, even if it costs a bit more. The fear of buying a big drive that ends up being a paperweight is real, especially when you're putting a lot of money into a workstation already. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So let's break down the Glyph Blackbox Pro RAID USBC desktop drive, 24 terabytes, and see whether it lives up to the promise of being the reliable, hassle-free storage solution you need for serious post-production work. First off, the Blackbox PRO is built around two 12 terabytes, 7,200 revolutions per minute drives inside a rugged aluminum shell. That alone tells you the target audience: people who deal with terabytes of footage, large 3D assets, or massive photo libraries on a regular basis. The hardware RAID switch lets you flip between RAID 0 for speed or RAID 1 for redundancy without needing to install extra software. In real-world terms, that means you can set it up for lightning-fast ingest when you're shooting raw footage on set, then switch to mirror mode for archiving your finished project safely. The USB 3.2 Gen 2 interface promises up to 10 gigabits per second, which translates to roughly 1 gigabyte per second in optimal conditions, fast enough to move a full 4K video file in under 10 seconds, assuming your computer's PCIe lanes can keep up. Now, what does that look like day to day? I spoke with a freelance editor who runs a 4K workflow on a laptop with a Thunderbolt 3 dock. She said that plugging the Blackbox PRO into her USB-C port allowed her to offload an hour of footage in about 30 seconds, which is a noticeable improvement over the 23 minutes it took with her older 2 terabytes HDD. The same editor also mentioned that the fan-assisted cooling kept the drives at a comfortable temperature even after an hour of continuous writes, so she never heard that whine that sometimes makes you wonder if the drive will overheat. For a small studio that needs to swap drives between workstations, the fact that the chassis is portable enough to sit on a desk but sturdy enough to survive a few bumps is a practical win. On the flip side, there are some trade-offs that matter. The 7,200 revolutions per minute speed is respectable, but it isn't the same as the 10,000 revolutions per minute or SSD performance you might see in boutique media drives. In a benchmark test run by a tech reviewer, the Blackbox PRO's sequential read-write hovered around 800,900 megabytes per second, which is good but not the top end you get from a NVMe enclosure. If your workflow involves editing directly off the external drive rather than copying files to an internal SSD, you may notice a slight lag when scrubbing through a high-bitrate 8K timeline. It's not a deal-breaker for most, but it's something to keep in mind if you're chasing the absolute fastest possible throughput. Another practical consideration is power. The unit draws power from the USB-C connection alone, which is convenient, no extra brick to clutter your desk. However, that also means you need a USB-C port that can deliver enough wattage. Some older laptops with USB-C only support data, not power delivery, and they'll simply refuse to spin up the drive. In those cases you'd have to use a powered hub or a separate power adapter, negating the plug-and-play simplicity that the product markets. So before you buy, double-check that your machine's USB-C ports are full-featured. Who should put this on their shopping list? If you're a video editor, VFX artist, or photographer who regularly handles multi-terabyte projects and needs both speed and the safety net of RAID 1, the Blackbox PRO hits a sweet spot. It's also a solid choice for small production houses that need a shared storage pool without the expense of a full-blown NAS. The 24 terabytes capacity means you can store several full-length movies or a huge library of raw photos without constantly swapping drives. And because the RAID switch is hardware-based, you avoid the hassle of installing and maintaining RAID software that can become a headache after a Windows update. Conversely, if your primary need is a portable backup drive for occasional documents, music, or a modest photo collection, this is overkill. You'd be paying for a level of performance and redundancy you'll never fully use, and you might be better off with a smaller SSD or a 2 terabytes Thunderbolt drive that's lighter to carry. Likewise, if your workflow is already centered around an internal RAID array or you have a high-end workstation with multiple NVMe slots, the Blackbox PRO's 10 gigabits per second ceiling could become a bottleneck, making the investment less attractive. Let's talk about value beyond the headline specs. The real money saver here is the hardware RAID switch. You can start a project in RAID 0 for speed, then, once the edit is locked, flip to RAID 1 and let the drive mirror the data automatically. That eliminates the need for third-party backup software or manual copying, which not only saves time but also reduces the